Hey, women's basketball fans, welcome to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans brought to you by Black Rosie Media and hosted by Erica L. Ayala. All right, basketball fans, welcome to another episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. But if you've been listening to the podcast, if you are subscribed or you follow us on YouTube, then you know that we also did our first ever preview episode with the amazing Misha Jones, which you can see Misha joining us once again. And of course, we've got Brian Florentin. And listen, the brother once again comes through in Barclays, which means that we got to ask Brian, who you got up on the wall?
Today, we have looks like two middleweight fighters going back and forth in an intense battle, which kind of fits the motif of today's game. So, once again, the art tells the
tale. Brian, come on, man. You hooking us up. What a great transition. And since Misha and I previewed this game, Brian, we're going to give you first word on this matchup. We get overtime. We get a grudge match like Misha and I said we would. So your overall thoughts and takeaways from this New York Liberty win in overtime.
I think one of the first things that stood out to me was that this was a different style of win for the team as compared to what they've been doing the past week. When they beat Phoenix and when they beat Atlanta, they didn't trail for a single second in any game. And the fact that they were able to come back from behind, from down 17 points against a really tough, intense team that shut them down the first time, I think speaks a lot to the connectivity they've been building from training camp to opening night to now. So I think for the Liberty, if they look at a game like this, they can say, hey, we took on a really good team that had our number. They shut down essentially our best player and maybe one of the MVP contenders, but we were still able to figure out a way. We were able to sort of like start diagnosing the defense as the game went on. We figured some things out. We were able to show that toughness, show that grit that's going to be needed when they go against some really elite teams, which they're going to be doing this week again. So this game, I think, really can be a sort of launching pad for them to really sort of like continue establishing that foundation they've been building.
Yeah, for sure. And it was an 89-88 win in overtime. And, you know, y'all, we should have known this game was going to bring the drama because we got this game. It was build up because right before the game, we got the All-Star starters, which we're going to talk about. But then also Phoenix wanted to tap in on the drama, and we found out that they have parted ways with Vanessa Nygaard, their head coach. Now, this is a podcast for New York Liberty fans. So all I'm going to say is just, Sandy Brondello didn't talk about it. Nobody asked her about it, but I certainly would love to know what she really thinks about it. We're just going to leave that there because we got a lot to get to. But Misha, I'm going to kick you off with this. We did get the All-Star starters. Now, no Washington Mystics on the starters list. What are your thoughts about that? About them from the Mystics front, but then also about who was named as an All-Star starter in 2023.
I'm not totally surprised. Actually, I'm not surprised at all that there's no Mystics on that list. I think what we've seen from the Mystics thus far is more team ball being, what makes them play their best, not so much super insane individual performances. So not too surprised that nobody's on that list. I love me some EDD, as we know. Kira, to me, is more MIP, vibes, not so much All-Star quite yet. But as far as the folks who are on this list, I think they got it right. I think the fans, I would love to have seen AT in there. I think for me, it's just tough not to have her there knowing the way she's playing. But outside of her, I think these are all super solid picks. All these players have been spectacular in their own rights and totally deserve to be on this list.
Absolutely. Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart, they were leading in the first week returns from the fan vote, which was 50% of the vote. But after the fan vote, the media vote, which was 25%, player vote, 25%, it was once again Wilson and Stewart who will be captains. So obviously, Brianna Stewart this year representing the New York Liberty. What do you have to say about Stewie getting on the starters list, being a captain again? And then just overall your thoughts on the list.
Yeah, for Stewie, I think it's well deserved. She's been amazing on both sides of the ball. She's anchored the interior defense. I think she's top 10 in like at least I want to say three categories. And she's like top 12 or 13 in assists. So she's been able to do everything imaginable. She set franchise records here. She's had efficiency numbers that are through the roof. She's been able to sort of like do every single thing and sort of like blend in perfectly to every single role. So I think being the leading vote getter on the Eastern Conference side is a welcome accomplishment for her and one she should be proud of. As for the rest of the roster, I liked it a lot. I thought that, Jewel Lloyd has had an amazing season. And I saw a graphic where I think she and Sabrina are like tied for I think they're like neck and neck for like the most 3-pointers made in like the first 12 games of a season in league history. And Jewel is doing it essentially with her being the main initiator, the main shot creator, the ace option for Seattle. So her just being able to keep that team afloat and sort of like keep them steady after all the changes is such a welcome, amazing sight. So that's going to be great. Seeing Aaliyah Boston on there was really cool. And I think especially from when we saw her the first time, she had a good game in Barclays Center, but she's gotten even better from there. So just seeing her rapid ascension over time and the fact that the Fever are looking like a really solid outfit for the first time in a long time, thanks in large part to her play, I think is really exciting. And I think I think we've talked about it before, just like making the connection between the college game and the pro game. So having the number one pick from a storied college institution be able to have that success translate immediately into the W and then be showcased on a feature stage like the All-Star game, I think is great for the league because it continues to bridge that gap from the college game to the pro game and beyond. So that's super exciting. And BG making it in is very awesome and amazing as well. She's, just beyond the fact that she's back and playing incredibly well. Like prior to her injury, I think every game she shot above 55% from the field. She's locking down the post. She's doing everything in an amazing fashion. And the fact that she's picked up where she left off is so amazing. And the fact that she's been that vocal presence in the league, she's sort of like made the league complete again. Yeah. I think is a very welcome accomplishment and very rewarding.
I love that
her.
outlook. Griner definitely was on my ballot. I love what you mentioned there. Arike Ogumbawale, also Neka Ogumake, Satu Sabali, who we've talked about, Brian, before. Jackie Young, very well deserved as a starter, her second All-Star selection overall. So I agree. I agree that this is a really solid list. I do think that we'll still see Kelsey Plum, likely Alicia Gray, Ka Copper, and I think Sabrina Ionescu as well. I didn't peg her as a starter for this year. I think she'll probably have a good chance at All-Star. She was a starter last year. I didn't necessarily agree that she was an All-Star starter, but again, 50% fan vote, so you get a little bit of that there. Now, Diana Taurasi in the mix. I think DT did have a good start to the season. She also has been dealing with injury, so that did kind of impact my personal vote that I had. But will we see DT or will we not have an All-Star game this year? Well, it might not matter because we no longer have Vanessa Nygaard.
Messy.
I'm just saying. But we're gonna move on. With that, we are gonna move on.
Ooh, it's piping hot. It's piping hot. It's piping hot.
Listen, I mean, come on. It was right there. I had to take a few of the little jokes here. But I do want to talk about, again, Stewie is going to be an All-Star, is going to be a captain, but this was not an All-Star performance from Breanna Stewart, at least from the offensive side. Misha, I want to come to you first. What do you think, if anything, Washington, was able to do effectively to disrupt what Stewart wanted to do for the Liberty?
So first and foremost, I think Washington established a level of physicality that New York was going to have to meet. I think that, they obviously started off the game strong offensively, but with Stewie specifically, they weren't just letting her get to her spots. And that's kind of what you have to do. My whole life, coaches have told me, like, if you want to get the calls, you have to be the aggressor. And I think defensively, the Mystics were the aggressor. Now, as we, went to the second half, things started to change a little bit. We could talk about that. But I think that was the key to kind of getting her out of rhythm early, and forcing other people to, take shots. I think Stewie took some long threes, which you're Stewie, you know what I mean? You can hit the three. But in the first quarter, I think that was what Washington wanted. They just didn't want her to get easy looks at the two. And yeah, that was a big part of it. But when they started using her as a screener in the second half. I think Sloot got those 2 layups off of back screens. I thought, talk about Sandy Brondello. That was brilliant. I said to Erica before we popped on here, she had her thinking cap on today, because that was just an excellent adjustment. Obviously, Stewie's getting a lot of attention. Use her as a screener, and you get easy buckets out of that. And then you also take that pressure off of her a little bit. But yeah, I think it was all just about physicality from the jump for Washington.
And Brian, I want to get your thoughts here because Washington was able to balloon up a 17-point lead. That was their largest lead in this game. And they really came out and dominated the New York Liberty. And we heard Misha talk about the impact that they had on Breanna Stewart. But what were some other things that you saw Washington do that really had New York in fits early in the game?
Yeah, one thing coming into the game, I kept a note in my head that the Mystics lead the league in forcing turnovers, and they were able to cash in a few turnovers early, get out an easy transition. There was one play, I think it might have been Sykes in the first quarter where she picked off a cross-court Vandersloot pass and got an easy layup. So I think early on, Washington was really able to just play the passing lanes, really up that pressure and physicality. They picked up Sabrina full court a few times. They picked up Sloot full court a few times. So they were really able to sort of get the Liberty off rhythm. And I think what they also did was that they sped them up a little bit. There were a few possessions at the start where it was just one pass and the shot goes up. When the Liberty are at their best is when the ball is moving side to side. When they won on Friday night, you just saw the ball just zipping all over the court. There was so much purposeful movement that led to so many open shots. Washington was really able to sort of jam that up throughout the night. And I think that as they were able to do that, they were really able to sort of start establishing the tempo in their favor early. I think what started to work for New York was that they started sort of forcing and insisting their way to the basket, getting to the free throw line, so it kept them within striking distance. Because I was in press row, I was sitting next to a friend of mine, Owen. I was like, it feels like they should be down 20 right now because Washington completely had the flow of the game in their favor. New York looked so out of sorts. Every time they would get a shot in half court, it was either rushed, or if they did get open, it would just be off. So the fact that New York was really able to sort of find their bearings gradually, I thought was a really good sign for them. And I think a big improvement from what happened in the first game.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And to your point, we're going to talk about free throws. Here's a stat. 23 out of 89 points for New York from the free throw line. 26%, a quarter of their points from the free throw line. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. They decided they weren't going to back down. They were chipping away. I'm not sure exactly how much time they led for in this game, but it was got to be less than 5-6 minutes, and that anchored them. I think I agree with you at a certain point. When you're not hitting shots, you have to decide you're going to attack the basket. I think that's exactly what they did. And yeah, they chipped away. They were a great team today, excuse me. And they showed that.
Yeah. If you look at the box score, it's pretty hilarious. On the biggest lead, it'll say for Washington, biggest lead 17, New York 1. And it's yep, they just led for it's 1 point lead. That was all they needed. So it's very sort of hilarious when you look at the box score in that way. And I think the fact that they were really able to sort of attack and get to the basket, I thought really saved them, especially early, because nothing was going in. Their 3-point shooting wasn't really there either for much of the night. With the exception of Sabrina late and Banaj in the corners, the 3-pointers weren't really hitting like that. Yeah. So the fact that they were able to sort of get to the line and really that really sort of kept them in, it kept them alive.
Yeah, and I know both of you know how much I love going to these data analytics that we have here. But Misha, there were a few things that we talked about and that we have already talked about even in our recap right here. But points in the paint, Washington dominated that 36-24. We talked about second chance points and opportunities. Misha, you and I talking about the rebounds and how the Liberty are really impactful and effective, and they want to play as a team that is going to clean up and get second chance opportunities through their rebounds, but also just through, in hockey, you would call it puck retrieval, but winning those 50-50 loose ball battles. And that was a big number here. Second chance opportunity, second chance points, 18-3. The points off of turnovers was mentioned, and I think early on that favored Washington, 16 points overall, but 23 overall for the New York Liberty. And then the bench points. Now, we did some of our team will win if. And one of the things that I said was the New York Liberty do need productivity from their bench. I don't think this is, the best productivity at 12 points, but it was more than Washington at 7. And I do want to talk about an unfortunate conversation that we have to have, especially for Washington fans, because they had to figure out what their rotations were going to be after Shakira Austin goes down with injury. Misha, we talk so much about the impact that Shakira can have, just gloating over her game and all of the improvements that she's made. We did a live stream on Black Rosie Media, and in that, a lot of people in the chat just saying how good it is to see a healthy Elena Delle Donne with a healthy Shakira Austin, and that came up short today. We got some word from Washington camp. So first, just the impact of Shakira and now her absence. Did that play a role? And what updates did we get post-game from Washington about her status?
Yeah, so I'll start with the update. They said it's a left hip strain. So that's what they're calling it. It looked like a hamstring live, so but our best wishes to her. Obviously, you hate to see anybody go down with an injury. I tweeted, injuries are so expletive because they are so expletive. But I think immediately her absence was felt as soon as she went out of the game. I told Erica before we hopped on here, I thought Jonquel Jones was about to go off because they started giving her the ball in the post kind of as soon as Shakira went down. But I thought that was a testament to the way she was crowding space in the paint. You can't give a player like Jonquel, a player like Brianna Stewart, space to operate in the paint. As soon as you do that, they've got you. And Shakira was doing a fantastic job of cutting off that space, of using her quickness, her agility to beat them to spots when they were kind of in one-on-one dribble attack situations. I think, I don't know where her block stats were on the day, but I think she was a rim protector today. We saw Sabrina get a fast break layup and miss it, because Shakira Austin was there trailing her. But yeah, it's so tough to see her go down. I think emotionally also, you saw the entire Mystics bench almost get up and run onto the court and surround Shakira Austin. And that's just a testament to not only how tight this team is, but how much they, see her, not only potential, but her growth, her blossoming so far this season. And yeah, it's just so tough to see her go out.
And Brian, there was something that Misha said that I thought was interesting about how that might open the floor up for Jonquel Jones. But that wasn't necessarily the case, especially as the New York Liberty were working their way to that 1-point lead that they had late in the game to ultimately win in overtime. And Sandy Brondello actually talked about her decisions regarding minutes and why we maybe saw a little bit more of Kayla Thornton as opposed to Jonquel Jones, especially late in the game and in overtime.
Yeah, Sandy mentioned that JJ just didn't have it as well as she had been today. She had been setting like a lot of good screens and was owning the board, so that was a positive. But I thought that with KT, you had someone where if you wanted to switch everything, KT can guard whoever on the court. She can sort of play the passing lanes, do all these things incredibly well. And I think that for the Liberty, just being able to have a lineup with Stewie at the 5, KT at the 4, and then you go 3 guards from there, it's a brand new sort of look for opponents to keep an eye on. And I think with Dolson being out for a while, it's going to be something the Liberty experiment with. So they're able to really sort of like test out their late game execution against elite teams. So just having a moment where KT can just sort of step in and fill fill in immediately at a moment's notice was really impressive.
And Misha, we've talked, obviously, again, this was a tight game. We talked about what this Washington team can be like in our preview episode, in episode 6, the Washington Mystics, that is, when they play really solid defense. Again, this game goes down to the wire. The Washington Mystics balloon up that lead, that 17-point lead, weren't able to keep it. Let's talk about the takeaways from the Mystics' point of view. What were the good, the bad? I think we kind of already hit on the ugly, and that's the Austin injury. But also, what were you hearing from the Mystics camp post-game about how they're going to put this loss into context, into the season?
So first of all, as far as takeaways go, I think offensively, this is a win. For the Mystics, for the things they've been struggling with as far as offensive flow and rhythm this season, this is a win. Okay, this is 4 Mystics are in double figures, I believe, if not 5. Everybody was in attack mode from the jump, which is something that Natasha Cloud and Ariel Atkins talked about after the game. It's fun to play, that duo specifically when both of them are hitting. It's fun to watch. I mean, obviously, but everyone was a threat. And with Washington though, you got to close, and you can have a great game against a team like New York, and Ariel Atkins says it, but with a team like this, it goes down to that one play. A lot of times you'll hear the opposite, like, oh, it's little plays throughout the game that lose a game. And in this situation, it was just the close. But they feel really good about a lot of the things they did offensively. Defensively, they were as solid as they always are. I think that they had 23 points off turnovers, which is, a big number. They rely on that a lot. And yeah, I mean, Ariel Atkins also talked about her shot specifically because she had been, in kind of a shooting slump, but is quickly breaking out of that as we saw today. She felt motivated, she said in the presser, to hit shots because she's been asked all season about that shooting slump. And she thinks every shot she takes is going in. So moving forward, that's a great bright spot for the Mystics to have her hitting again, to have Natasha Cloud be such a threat, to have Elena Deladon not have to be the one. You know what I mean? It didn't seem like she had to force too much tonight. She didn't have to go outside of herself. She just made typical Elena Deladon plays, which sounds real casual, but Elena Deladon makes some spectacular plays. But yeah, it just came down to execution and overtime. Got some great minutes from Tiana Hawkins off the bench. Shatori Walker-Kimbrough guarding, Maureen Johannes when she came in the game for Sabrina Ionescu in foul trouble early. But yeah, there's a lot of great takeaways. It's tough for that Mystics team. You could tell, just not to close that one out after so much work was put in.
And that kind of leads me to, I want to ask Brian you this question, because Misha and I talked about how this is really a barometer game. We're still kind of early in the season, so must win is very hyperbolic. That being said, it's still an important game for these teams coming in. And so I want to ask a similar question. What were the good? What were the bad? I mean, were there ugly? What were the takeaways from Liberty Camp? They did get the win, but what do you hope and what did you hear that the team is motivated to really focus on after having to really grind out this win? This episode of Gotta Get Up is brought to you by our new sponsor, the Bounceless Control Sports Bra. No more sacrificing your form to control the bounce. No more feeling embarrassed because your breasts want to work out on their own. No more doubling or tripling to make it through workouts. Now, one sports bra gives you the support you need. And our listeners and viewers over on Black Rosie Media will get 15% off their first order by using code BRM, which of course stands for Black Rosie Media. So head to bounceless.com to get your Bounceless Control sports bra and get back to your active life.
For the Liberty, a good thing for them was that they won the rebounding battle again. That's been an issue Sandy Brondello has pressed on a lot this season, that when they don't win the rebound battle, they tend to lose games. And I think they won the rebounding battle by like 16 tonight. So just being able to own the boards, get those extra possessions was really valuable for them, and a great sign that, the coaching and the focus on cleaning up the boards has been very helpful. Another positive I would say was Sabrina Ionescu's game. Erica, we talked about it a while back, but Sandy had said that Sabrina can hit threes from like NBA range, which is like really far out. And the fact that Sabrina was able to hit 7 3-pointers and really hit threes from a really far distance helped create a lot of room. There was one play, I think, late in the fourth quarter where Deladon, where they were able to get Stewie on a switch, I think against Sykes, and Deladon came to double. And then Stewie was able to find Sabrina from like 28 feet, and she was able to hit the three that got the crowd all the way back in, got the delivery a little bit closer. So having a player who can really stretch the defense out to its absolute maximum is so valuable, and something that would really sort of like give the Liberty more room to operate, more confidence that they can score from anywhere on the court, and give them a little bit more freedom and flexibility to work with down the stretch. I would say as far as a bad, the free throws late. They won the game, but they, for a great free throw shooting team like the Liberty are, they missed, I want to say, like 5 or 6 free throws in the fourth quarter. Like Stewie missed one, Sabrina missed one, B missed one. I think Niara missed a free throw. Courtney missed 2 free throws. So the fact that, yeah.
Sloot, yep.
Salute.
Mm-hmm.
Sloot missed. I feel like everyone missed free throws. Both teams, right, Misha?
Yeah.
Like
Tiana Hawkins missed some big ones down the stretch. And yeah.
Yep.
yeah, you
and
right
I
about
think
that.
Natasha Cloud as well. Yeah. So to your point, Brian, just huge, a
Yeah.
huge.
I feel
point
like
of
that's going to
emphasis
be
here.
something they probably tell school to
Yeah.
be like, guys, we need you to like do better at the free throw shooting, shooting down the stretch. And I didn't like I saw a clip of it online, but apparently in one of the first timeouts, they had the mic'd up with Sandy, and I think the first thing. So I feel like Sandy being like, guys, like be serious. Like I think that's gonna be something we sort of keep an eye on as well too. So the fact that they were able to like show up to work and get the job done is very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And yes, she, expletives were thrown in there. She's like, "Did I remember?" Oh no, I remember what I said. I think another takeaway for me from this game was there were two dogs, and in different ways. Tosh Cloud, come on. Like, I'm talking flexing, making big shots, dog, ready to bite. And I love to see it. I mean, I didn't love it as much as I usually do, but I still loved it. I found myself torn. That was beautiful. On the other side, you had a different kind of dog. This is a dog couldn't find a bone if it couldn't find a bone in a pet store, and that was Brianna Stewart. And I was like, dang, like some of the shot selection was a little crazy. I was like, sis, there's like pressing and then there's this. I don't know. I don't know what this is. I've never seen this. I'm not used to it. And I was a little concerned.
In a pet store is crazy. I'm
In a
sorry.
pet store.
In a pet store is
Can't find a bone in a pet store. Couldn't find it. Wouldn't happen. I gotta get these jokes. Gotta get these.
You're rolling right now. You're rolling. Keep them coming.
I'm gonna tell you the other joke, Brian. That's a for off air later. No recording of that. I'll tell you that joke later. But also, I might save it for public for another time. Anyway, but Stewie, there was one play. Misha and I were talking about this off air, but there was this one play where Stewie had just missed another shot. There was an inbounds play, and Sabrina Ionescu went to go inbound the ball. Stewie grabbed her at her arm and pushed her back onto the court, took the ball, and then the Liberty scored on that possession. And I said on the live stream, I was like, I'm gonna translate this for y'all. For anyone who's ever played sports, if you've ever played basketball, even if Stewie didn't say a word to Sabrina Ionescu, what she said was, I'm gonna need you to go do what you do. And that to me was also a symbolic gesture of Brianna Stewart telling the New York Liberty through her actions and through the confidence and saying, no, you are going to do this, telling this team to keep fighting, and we're not losing this game. We're not losing this game. So she did her own version of Game 5 guaranteed. And it was honestly really beautiful to watch both of them cook. I loved it. And so, Brian, I'm going to ask you this question as we start to wrap up. But when you think of a New York Liberty squad that has this super team tag on it that got licked by Washington in our first game, and you see how Washington played, and this is a core, Misha and I talked about this, they still have a lot of that core from that 2019 championship. But you have a New York Liberty who has individuals who've won championships, but that team, that franchise is still missing it. What do you think the New York Liberty are going to take as positives from this game to propel them, as now their next opponent is going to be the Connecticut Sun? Now, unfortunately, they had an injury themselves. Brianna Jones out for the season with a ruptured Achilles. Dang. But Connecticut is not a team to be trifled with. And to Misha's point from earlier, Connecticut is also a team that's going to be in Brianna Stewart's gut.
Yeah, for this game, I think it shows the Liberty that they are just as tough as these other teams. I think some of the early perception might have been if you sort of like play tough, if you play really physical with them, you rough them up. That the fact that they were able to really sort of like go blow for blow with the Mystics, who are super competitive, who were all the way locked in even after Shakira left. Like, I thought that the Mystics were just going to sort of be deflated, but they still were on it, and they kept that dedication and they kept that spirit and energy, and the Liberty were able to sort of match that. And I think that is a great sign for them, because it shows them that we can dig down deep and we can come from behind against the best teams. Yeah, it's one thing to dominate teams that you're supposed to win by 20, 30, whatever. The fact that you're able to do it against a fellow contender, and a contender who's dominating you in your house, carrying you to the finish line as well too. That part speaks to just the toughness of the team, the home court advantage of the building, keeping the fans all the way with you, having them sort of support you, give you that optimism and extra hope. And I think that for the Liberty, it shows them that great perimeter defenders in Cloud, Sykes, and Atkins be able to do what we do. We can battle with Deladon on the inside. We can do all of these things. And even when we make mistakes, we have just enough sort of guile and willpower and connectivity to bring it all the way home.
Yep, and they're going to need that this week coming up, because the New York Liberty will take on the Connecticut Sun, as I mentioned. That's going to be Tuesday, June 27th on NBA TV in Uncasville, Mohegan Sun Arena. And then, I don't know, just some team called the Las Vegas Aces. I don't know, might have heard of them. They're kind of good, I guess. So that's going to be a tough one on the road, the New York Liberty. And, then on Sunday, they will also take on the Seattle Storm, a different kind of challenge. Seattle has obviously had its struggles, but I think is starting to find its stride. Now, Misha, we're going to come to you, because now the New York Liberty are familiar with having some home and home series, or going back to back with the same opponent. We did that with Chicago earlier on. But similar question to what I asked Brian. What does this game, it was a 1-point loss in overtime, but how does this game get Washington, you think, ready for the week that they have ahead, where they're going to play Atlanta not once, but twice? And maybe Atlanta's not a top 3 team, but they got some fight in them.
Mm-hmm. I think just by the nature of what this game was, kind of the same as what Brian said, this was a dogfight. This was blow for blow. I mean, we talked about the picture on the wall. This was a prize fight. And I think knowing that Atlanta has been so dangerous, in moments where they put it all together this season, I think this is a good primer for that kind of intensity and that kind of energy. And the Mystics now know they can withstand that from, one of the top teams in the league in the New York Liberty. And now that they have that kind of in the bag, I think they knew, okay, in the mind we can do this, but have we done it, out on the court? I think they've shown and displayed it now. So now it's something they can fall back on with some confidence. I think that this is a Eastern Conference Finals potential preview that we just saw.
Ooh.
I really believe that in my heart. And obviously, like you just said, Connecticut's right up there with them. No tea, no shade to y'all, Connecticut. I love Mohegan Sun Arena. I love a good casino. All right. No tea, no shade. But I truly think, this could be one of the ways that the Eastern Conference ends up in the end. So Washington has just proved to themselves, okay, we're back at that contender form. Truly now we just got to figure out how to close. For me, it's overtime. It's execution down the stretch. It's hitting free throws. It's making layups. Converting. Oh my goodness. Converting on turnovers. I know they had 23 points off turnovers. That's fine. That's good. But in OT, there were a couple turnovers they forced New York into that they just didn't capitalize on. And so I just think that that's going to be a big emphasis, as the season continues on, because you can play as great as you want to for the duration of the game, but you got to finish it. You got to finish.
Absolutely. So there will be some swag surfing on Wednesday as the Washington Mystics head back to Entertainment and Sports Arena. It's both teams have Commissioner Cup games. So Tuesday's matchup against Connecticut will be a Commissioner's Cup game, Atlanta Dream at Washington, and then it is a home and home, as was mentioned. So it will be Washington at the Atlanta Dream. Tanisha Wright had some spicy things to say earlier in the week, and we didn't really talk about it on air, but officiating was curious in this game and this matchup. So we'll see if it gets spicy again as they go to Gateway Center at College Park in Atlanta, Georgia. But I mean, this has been fun. Like, we're family now. We just gonna have to have these family reunions more often because like we're crushing it. This is amazing. I love it.
The vibes are fantastic over here. I want to let everybody know, even if I never come on the podcast again, if Erica hits you in the DMs, come on, gotta get up. You better come on. You better get up.
Gotta get up.
Gotta get up. All right, alliteration.
Let's go. We gotta get up. Let's go. Stay on the scene. We gonna keep you on the scene. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. Right on, right on. We doing it. But similarly to how we ended our preview show, we know that things are bigger than ball, bigger than basketball, and certainly sports media. And so Misha and I had a really great conversation on how to open up, and hopefully we'll see this soon, broadcast, on-air talent, and also sports media to people who are more reflective of what WNBA players, how they identify who they are. And so that was a great conversation. So I gave Misha last word for the preview, but Brian, you're going to get last word because as always, you are coming straight from Barclays. But I know that you have been able to get to know the staff at the Barclays Center a little bit more and some of the conversations that they're having around their workforce. And so, Brian, you're going to get last word on Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. We had Misha Jones. I, of course, am Erica L. Ayala, and Brian Florenton is going to bring us home so we can get a little bit more of the vibe and what's happening in Brooklyn.
Of the NBA draft, the concession workers in the arena held a rally across the street from the Barclays, advocating for better healthcare benefits, better pay wages, and better sort of treatment from the company that manages them, called Levy Management. I was able to talk to a lot of the workers there, and one of the big things that I sort of took away from it was just that they wanted respect at the bargaining table and respect in terms of treatment and salary, benefits, things like that. It, like in my day job, I was in a similar situation where we had to fight to get benefits, fight to get those healthcare things like that in a contract. So I empathize with them on a deep level, and just sort of hearing their stories and seeing them and share their stories with me and the folks who were there, it really meant a lot. And I think that for the workers, they mentioned that they've really made Barclays what it is. You know, they've been open. The building has been open over 10 years now. A lot of the workers were there from the beginning to now, and they're the ones who sort of help keep things moving well. They're providing the services, they're cooking the food for the people, they're doing all of these things, and they make the environment here so positive and friendly for folks who are coming in to watch either the Liberty concerts or any sort of big events like that. So I think that as they sort of like back and forth as they sort of fight for better benefits, I think it's always important for us in the community to sort of like have that solidarity with them, because like they mentioned that we all may find ourselves in a situation where we have to sort of prove our worth. We have to sort of fight for the things that we deserve and what we need. So I think that for us as sort of like fans, people who watch the game, people who take in the game, all these kind of things, just having that support for them and that sort of understanding and respect for what they're going through, I think will sort of go a long way and show the workers here that the community is behind them 100%.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for giving us that insight. And I think you're absolutely right. As a media member in particular, we often do cross paths with those workers. And as fans, especially if you are season ticket holders, we know Liberty fans are loyal, as I'm sure other groups are as well. You get to know people, you see their faces, and you share the ups and downs of a season, but sometimes also of life. So I'm really grateful that you were able to bring that to our attention, Brian. And that's going to be our show. We said that would be the wrap up. But Misha, we want to thank you again for joining us. Brian, as always, you're fantastic. You picked a great picture on the wall for this recap. And that is our show. Got to get up. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. You can also listen on your audio platform of choice. But we're going to do the roundup again. We got a little squad here now. So I hope y'all are ready. I hope y'all are ready for all our antics. But thank you as always. And I know we have a lot going on in the world. I also want to just send some love to Cindy Brunson. She's always been very supportive of what a lot of us here individually and as a collective have done. And I know that her family is mourning the passing of her father. So sending some love to her and anyone else, just be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. That's the best that hopefully we can do. So if anyone else is going through some things, we're sending you love here from the Gotta Get Up podcast. But that's going to do it for us. We'll catch you next week to recap the week that was for the New York Liberty. Peace out, everybody.